Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all keeping safe and well, and welcome to any newcomers as well. I've continued to receive one or two comments from people who are new to this channel, and it's lovely to know that people are finding me and enjoying my stuff, so you're very welcome here. Thank you for coming along. This is another of my monthly roundups that I do, where I recap on the things I've been doing over recent weeks. And April's a nice variety, as always, so there's a couple of exhibitions to talk about, one which was outdoors and one which was indoors. There was a PR invite for my friend Emily that I work with, so all opinions are my own regardless anyway, but it was very kind of her to invite me to join her for that. I've also been to a theatre show as well, which was amazing. That was on the day I'm filming this, in fact. And there's also a theatre workshop I've been to that I'm being paid for. So that's an interesting thing to talk about. That's a new thing that I've done. And then there's some stand-up comedy things I've been watching at home on DVD and online. There's been a few new releases that I've been wanting to watch. So I thought I'd watch a few older things as well that I'm wanting to catch up with. So there's various bits and pieces there to mention. And there's a few bits of other comedy on telly as well that I want to talk about. So yeah, it's a nice variety as always. There's more detail in the blog post as per usual. There's a lot more that I write compared to what I say in these videos. This is just an overview as always. So go and check out the blog post via the link in the description and you'll find out a lot more information about all these things. And yeah, let's just crack on with it. And I hope you enjoy. So the first thing that I'll talk about are the exhibitions, as they're the things that I went to earliest in the month. And the first thing I want to mention is Paws on the Wharf, which is a collection of guide dog sculptures that have been put all around Canary Wharf. This is raising awareness and funds for guide dogs for the blind. So obviously being visually impaired, it's something that I wanted to support. And it's just a very cute trail anyway. There's lots of wonderful sculptures of guide dogs decorated in all sorts of different ways by different artists, some of whom are visually impaired, and it's very accessible. A lot of them are tactile. They've got different elements on them that you can feel. And there have been guided tours as well. I didn't go on one of the tours. I just downloaded the information from the Guide Dogs website and used that to find my way around, which was very easy. But yeah, there were tours people would go on and sensory experiences and things. And all these sculptures are being auctioned off as well at the end of the trail. And you can still see the sculptures if you're quick. They're on display in Canary Wharf until the 17th of May. I did the whole trail in a couple of hours, but you can spread it out if you want to obviously look at them for a bit longer or whatever. But yeah, I really enjoyed looking at them. They're very, very nice. There's a whole blog post I've made just about that, a whole gallery of pictures from all of the sculptures that you can take a look at if you can't get there in person. So yeah, I really enjoyed looking at that, and I hope it raises a nice amount of funds for guide dogs, which is of course a vital and wonderful organisation. And then the other exhibition I went to was the Disney 100 exhibition at the Excel Centre in East London. I was invited along by my friend Emily, who I work with as a support worker in a journalism role. So she was invited along to review it, and I'll link to her article in the description below. And this is all about 100 years of Disney, as the name suggests. And, you know, I didn't know if it would be some sort of just cash in where there isn't really much there. But in all fairness to them, it is huge. There is loads of stuff in there. They've really made an effort with it, which is fantastic. There's so many different films and characters that you're bound to recognise, and some you won't as well. But there's something in there for every Disney fan, whatever your age, whatever you're into. It's really comprehensive, and there's lots of things to interact with and watch and listen to. And there's hundreds of items, including sketches, paintings, props, models, information panels to read, and all sorts. There's loads to look at in there. We spent a good couple of hours in there. You could spend easily twice as long, if not more, in there if you're really, really obsessive. So yeah, we really enjoyed that. Emily got some nice photos of herself with the various photo opportunities and things that were there. And yeah, we just really enjoyed it. It was a fun day out. So yeah, if you're a Disney fan and you can get down to the Excel, then I can recommend it. It's well worth a look. It's not cheap, I know, but it is worth it.
Begin! Here's my pal Walt to tell you how the magic is made.
There's a lot of satisfaction in developing ideas into reality. When we consider a new project, we really study it. Not just the surface idea, but everything about it. And when we go into that new project, we believe in it all the way. We have confidence in our ability to do it right, and we work hard to do the best possible job.
So moving on to theatre, and the big show I saw this month was one of the major West End productions I've been wanting to tick off my bucket list for a while, and that was Moulin Rouge, the musical, which is absolutely incredible. I hadn't seen the film before, and I deliberately didn't watch it in advance of going to see this because I wanted to be surprised by as much of it as possible. You know, I knew kind of like the bare minimum story-wise, and I knew one or two of the songs that were in it, but a lot of it I didn't know, and I was pleasantly surprised by, which is good. So we started off with a touch tour, which was fantastic. We got to meet 3 members of the cast: the guy who plays the Duke, who kind of just told us a bit about himself and showed us what his accent was like and stuff, which was nice. And then there was also the guy playing Santiago and a can-can dancer who were already in their costumes. So we actually got to feel their costumes while they were wearing them, which was really cool, and they were lovely to chat to. So it was really nice of all of them to give up their time, as indeed it was for the production crew and the ushers and things, who kind of let us wander around the stage after that. We got to see the set of the dressing room. If you know the show, then you'll know what I mean. There's a whole dressing room area with some lovely like seating, chaise lounge, that type of thing, and a kind of dressing table area. And we got to feel like the big heart archway on the back wall and stuff like that. And there were some other costumes we looked at and some wigs and things. So it was really good. And the audio description was excellent. Of course, it's delivered by vocalized audio describers, so you can't go wrong with that. And the musical itself is, of course, fantastic. There's a nice love story at the heart of it, but of course you really ultimately go there for the singing and the dancing, which is absolutely sublime. It's set in the 1800s, but it actually uses lots of modern pop songs. There's all sorts of references and performances of different songs in there. And because I hadn't seen the film beforehand, I didn't know a lot of the songs that would be in it. I deliberately hadn't looked at the list, so I knew a couple of the obvious ones, but there's some really interesting takes on different songs in there. You know, obviously Elton John is the most well-known one in there, Your Song, but then there's Lady Gaga, there's Katy Perry, there's references like the Rolling Stones and Queen that pop up in there. You know, there's all sorts of different things that come up in the show. It's a real mixture. Some songs are performed like in full, and some songs are performed as part of medleys. So there's lots to look out for, which is really nice. And the dancing, and the costumes that the people are dancing in as well, is just amazing. The choreography and everything is just fabulous, and the lighting as well is really, really nicely done, and the set design, the attention to detail everywhere is just spectacular. It is really, really good. So yeah, I'm really glad I saw that. As I say, it's one of those bucket list musicals I'm waiting to tick off. It was well worth the wait. So thank you to everybody at the Piccadilly Theatre and the production team and the members of the cast who took the time to come out and see us, and obviously the vocalised audio describers as well. And then the other theatre-related thing I did this month was a workshop, which was unusual for me, and not as an attendee, but as someone who was helping to deliver it, because I was very kindly invited to join Ros Chalmers, who's a very well-known audio describer here in London, and she was awarded an MBE last year, which gives you an idea of the calibre of person we're talking about here. She's very professional, she's very friendly, she's lovely. So she very kindly invited me to join her for a workshop she was delivering for a small theatre production company called Part of the Main. We had a whole series of workshops this month called Part of the Grid, and it's all about kind of educating and nurturing emerging talent in the theatre industry. So it was teaching them about things like marketing and budgeting and captioning and various other things. So we were delivering a workshop about audio description and just like the basics of it, you know, what it's about and the basic things you have to think about when putting audio description together for an audience of people like myself. So I was there to kind of represent, you know, users. You know, obviously I don't represent everybody in terms of everybody's needs, but I can give a general overview of why I enjoy audio description and things like that. So I was able to talk to them about, you know, why it's important to me, why I enjoy it, the things that I don't like as well, the things that go wrong sometimes, things like that. So they're aware of them and the things that I really like about it and things like that. So they enjoyed hearing me talk about that, and they asked some very thoughtful questions as well. And then we kind of got to hear Ros kind of do her thing and show them what to think about. And for me, that was very interesting as well, because obviously as a user, you do kind of take AD for granted when you use it in the theatre or on the TV. You know there's some hard work involved. You have some sense of the things they have to think about, but you don't really appreciate all the challenges and the subtleties that they have to kind of deal with. So to hear Ros talking about it and to go through some pictures and describe things as well, show them what to look for, it gave me a much greater appreciation and, you know, even more respect than I already had for the kind of work that audio describers do. It's not an easy job, but it is obviously hugely appreciated. It makes a massive difference to people like myself, enabling me to access theatre in a way that I would just never be able to do otherwise. So yeah, I'm glad that, you know, she invited me on to give a user's perspective, and it's something I'm being paid for as well, which is great. So yeah, it was a really nice workshop. Everyone seemed to enjoy it. There was some lovely feedback at the end as well as people were leaving. So yeah, I do hope it was useful for the people who attended, and if any of them happen to be watching this, then hi. You're welcome to get in touch if you're on the workshop and ask me anything if you need to. But yeah, it was good fun. So thank you to Ros and Part of the Main for inviting me along to that. It was good. So then moving on to stand-up comedy next, and there have been quite a few shows I've been watching this month because there are a few new releases online I wanted to check out and a few other bits and pieces on DVD or online I wanted to look at as well. So it just made sense to have a bit of a binge on stand-up this month, and that gets a load of stuff out of the way all at once. So one of the things I've been doing is watching Ross Noble's DVDs because I saw him live in person last month, as I mentioned in my last video. So I've been going through his old DVD sets, and there's a lot of material on them because, as I said before, all of his shows are improvised. So on each of his DVD sets, he releases footage from multiple shows on the tour because there's little to no repetition between them. So there's a lot of stuff to look at. And he's also very good with the extra features as well, you know, even down to like spoof copyright notices when the discs open. He does commentaries and he does little quizzes and other little extras as well. He did make quite a lot of effort when he released DVDs. He doesn't anymore. He just releases his shows online these days, which is a shame, but at least we do still get them in some form. But yeah, his DVDs were great, right down to the artwork and the music and everything. He just really made the most of the format, which is great. So there will eventually be a long blog post looking through all of his DVDs and a few of his online shows as well at a later date, but I am enjoying going through them at the moment. But apart from Ross, the first person I want to mention this month is Angela Barnes, whose show Hot Mess is on ITVX. There's a whole bunch of stand-up shows on ITV's website in association with Next Up Comedy, most of which don't interest me. There's one other that I've seen, like by Paul Zerdin, which I've reviewed before. That's very good. There's one or two other comedians I might look at some point, but Angela Barnes is the one I really wanted to check out because I didn't get a chance to see her on tour last year, and I like her from Mock the Week and stuff like that. So yeah, she was very good. She talks about the pandemic, inevitably, and also talked about her wedding as well. Lots of stories about that, and there's a bit of political stuff about Boris Johnson and Partygate and women in Parliament. And she also talks about being in her 40s and embracing technology and why she doesn't want to have children and various other bits and pieces. She mentioned her ADHD as well that she's been diagnosed with. So there's a nice variety of material there. She's a great storyteller. It's very funny. And she also pays tribute to her former support act, Phil Gerard, who sadly passed away from cancer on her wedding day, which was a big blow to her, obviously. They got on really well. So it's nice of her to pay tribute to him in that show. So yeah, that's worth a watch if you enjoyed Angela Barnes or Mock the Week or other panel shows she's been on. And then next up we have Fern Brady, whose new special Autistic Bikini Queen has just come out on Netflix. I enjoyed her previous stand-up show over Christmas. So I decided to check this one out as well. And she's very good. She's a Scottish comedian and has her own kind of unique style and perspective on life, thanks in part to her nationality, the fact that she's Scottish, but also her autism that she has and her cynicism about some aspects of life all kind of comes together nicely. The show isn't actually much about her autism, even though it's in the title, and it does come up kind of a little bit here and there, but it's mainly not about that. She just talks about it a bit at the beginning. But other than that, during the show, she talks about being health conscious and how her body's changing as she's getting older and walking alone at night and travelling alone on tour, living in London and why it doesn't live up to the rom-coms and things like that, and you know, the kind of picture they paint of the city, and dating when she was younger and why she hasn't made a boyfriend yet, and her thoughts about death, you know, not in a depressing way, but she just has some thoughts about that, and her old job in a strip club and sexy talk and having her own house and getting a cat. And she ends with an amusing finale involving a member of the audience as well. So yeah, Fern Brady's show is pretty good. I'm glad I watched that. And then next up we have Jack Whitehall, whose new special Settle Down is also on Netflix. And that's, again, very good. It's been 4 years since his last special, because it was 4 years since his last tour. So it's been nice to see him back on stage again. He's at the O2 for this particular special. And again, he's got a different perspective on kind of life because of his kind of privileged upbringing and going to a public school and being a little bit posh and stuff. So he talks about his old public school at the start of this show and explains how trying to get a higher rating in the list of alumni on their website kind of backfired on him a bit. But he also talks about his relationship with his girlfriend, which is kind of like the central kind of pillar of the show, if you like. She talks about her diabetes diagnosis and suffering a miscarriage with their first baby, which is a brave thing to talk about on stage, and the new child they're expecting at that time as well, who was happily born in September last year. And then apart from those personal topics, he talks about alcohol and online tests to prove you're not a robot, which are very irritating, I must agree. Going on safari and people with discriminatory views, dining by himself while he was living in America. And then he concludes with a kind of a patriotic finale about why he loves being British, why he decided to move back here. You know, not some of the bigger, more obvious things, but just some of the smaller aspects of British life that obviously we're all familiar with. So yeah, that's another good show as well. I enjoyed that. And then another new show that came out on Netflix this month is Jimmy Carr's new special, Natural Born Killer. And it's more of the same from Jimmy, essentially, which is by no means a bad thing. I mean, if you like Jimmy like I do and you know the sort of humour he does, then you'll enjoy the show. The point I'm kind of making by saying that is really that his controversial jokes aren't really that shocking anymore because you know what he's like and you know they're just jokes as well. But there are still some very good jokes in there. I'm not saying they're bad jokes. There's still some very clever stuff in there. And he does actually make some comments during the show that does indicate that he, you know, understands some of the issues that are at hand there and that he does actually care about these things. And he doesn't do those controversial jokes all the way through the show. He gets a lot of them out of the way near the start, in fact, because people are obviously expecting them, so he doesn't want to disappoint the expectations of his audience. But there's later on a nice routine about him becoming a father, because he's got a lot of great observational material about that. And then towards the end, he teaches a young guy in the audience about some sex advice. So there's quite a variety of stuff in there, actually. So it is a good show. It's not his best work by any means, but it is good. There's some really nice nice stuff in there. So it's well worth a watch if you are a fan of Jimmy's like I am. And then next up, I've watched the old DVD specials by Rod Gilbert, because back in 2022, I saw his latest release called The Book of John, which was released at a time when he was going through cancer treatment. So various comedian friends of his were encouraging people to buy this DVD that had been released to support him. So I was happy to buy that, and I enjoyed it. So I thought, yeah, I must watch his old DVDs at some point, and finally got around to it this month, and they're very good. He has this kind of angry style that's kind of unique to him, that allows him to rant about all sorts of different things, often in ways that I agree with, to be fair. And yeah, he's a very good storyteller as well. He's able to kind of pad things out with lots of nice other bits of material. He's got a lot of great observational comedy. He's very good at that. So the first show is called The Award-Winning Mince Pie, which is ultimately about him having a nervous breakdown over a mince pie at a service station in Knutsford. There's plenty of material about that and service stations in general. But he also fleshes it out by talking about performing at a working men's club, corporate gigs, budget airlines, turning 40, buying bedding, entertaining troops in Afghanistan, and so on. And he also reveals how he used to pretend that he was from a fictional town in Wales called Llanbobl, for which there was an extra feature on the DVD then, which is like a spoof feature about him revisiting the town, which is quite good. And there's also a bonus routine about losing his luggage as another extra, and a little compilation of outtakes, including some hecklers during the show, so that's quite fun. And then the next show is called The Cat That Looked Like Nicholas Lyndhurst, who was the actor who played Rodney in Only Fools and Horses, of course. And it doesn't really relate to the show as a whole. He just made up that title just to wind up a fan who kept bringing him gifts based on the title of his previous shows, like he got given a mince pie after the previous tour that I just mentioned, for example. So he just made that title up, although towards the end there is more of a deeper explanation actually as to why he came up with that title. But most of the show is really just about the past year or so of his life, when he unleashes his frustrations about the press reviews of his mince pie tour, and doing the laundry, buying a Hoover, the different ways that men and women communicate, having a kind of relaxing day out with his girlfriend that was anything but, and what happens when people panic, and swimming, smoothies, and then going on an anger management course. And then he, as I say, he ties things up nicely at the end as well. And there's another little extra about that fictional Welsh town on the DVD as well. And then the third show is called The Man with the Flaming Battenberg Tattoo. And this is ultimately about the impact of Rod getting a tattoo of a flaming Battenberg cake on his shoulder as part of his Work Experience TV series, where he was trying out different jobs. And in this particular episode, which is on the DVD as an extra feature, he was going to tattoo someone, and they persuaded him to get a tattoo himself to see what it was like before he did it to someone else. And that's what he ended up going with. And so the show is kind of about the impact of that ultimately. It was at a time when his relationship with his girlfriend was in a bit of a rut, so they wanted to try and kind of pull that together as well. A lot of the show is actually centred around his anger management diary from the course that was kind of alluded to in the previous show. So he kind of reads lots of extracts from that and admits to being petty about various things, and gives examples of like past complaints he's made to Imperial Leather and the Body Shop, and then an argument he had with his girlfriend over an electric toothbrush she gave him as a gift, and how he had a confrontation with the manager in a Tesco Metro store about potatoes, and his thoughts about quiet carriages on trains and red hen restaurants at services and things like that. And then he shares his girlfriend's reaction to a tattoo at the end and their efforts to patch up the relationship and stuff like that. So again, there's a nice variety in that show. So all those shows are very funny. I'm glad I watched those. And then on a more serious note, I also watched his documentary, A Pain in the Neck, on the Channel 4 website, because that's still available on catch up. And this is a show that Rod made for Stand Up to Cancer last year, where he openly shares his journey getting treatment for head and neck cancer in Cardiff. It's a brutal process with him getting chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and we see the kind of pain and distress that he has to go through. It is very difficult to watch that, also important as well. And it's very moving at the end when he's kind of gets all emotional with relief, when it's kind of all been successful and he can kind of live a free life again. So yeah, let's hope things continue to go well for him. He did also host a comedy roast as well for Stand Up to Cancer during the live telethon, which is also available on the Channel 4 website. But I did have a quick look, but most of the celebrities on there, I don't know or don't interest me, so I wasn't really bothered about that. I saw a bit of it and that was it. But the documentary absolutely is well worth the watch. It's a difficult watch, but certainly an important one. And then finally, for the comedians, I saw a few specials by Sean Walsh, who has a new special out on YouTube that he's released for free, and this is a sequel to a previous special he released on YouTube, which is also still online, a couple of years ago. So I watched them both in the correct order because they kind of form a continuous story. You can watch the new one without seeing the previous one, but I decided to watch both, and they are very good. It's all about his kissing scandal on Strictly Come Dancing. I don't watch Strictly, it has no interest in me, and I kind of vaguely knew about the scandal at the time. I didn't pay any attention in the media, even though the media hounded him for it. But ultimately, he was a contestant on Strictly Come Dancing, and he was caught on camera kissing the dancer that was his partner in the show, and he had a partner and she was married, so you can obviously see where the trouble lies. It was an incredibly stupid thing of him to do. I'm not condoning him for it by any means, but it is his story now that he's kind of come out the other side of all the mental health struggles struggles he had as a result of that, because, you know, he basically just lost his career as a result of that, and he's now trying to get back into stand-up comedy again now that kind of all the dust has blown over. And yeah, he does talk a lot about that, and there's other material on the side as well, but ultimately the story is about, you know, what happened immediately afterwards, and then how he's kind of tried to recover his life since then. So there are some difficult topics in there, but he actually deals with them very, very humorously. Obviously, I know it's only his side of the story and stuff like that. I don't know everything about him as a person, but based on what I've seen there, he does seem obviously genuinely sorry for what he did, and he did go through a very difficult journey. The media did hound him incessantly, as they do, making things very difficult. But yeah, it's very brave of him to share his story, and it's very funny when he does so as well. So those shows are both filmed at the Bill Murray Comedy Club. One is called Kiss, and the other one is called Sean Walsh is Dead, Happy Now. And there's also a little taster for a sitcom called Clown on his YouTube channel as well that's worth looking at. It's only a short little video, but there's a lot of potential for a sitcom there about a comedian who's down on his luck trying to rebuild his career as well. So that's worth looking at too. And then because I saw both of those shows, I thought I'd watch his earlier 2013 special as well called Shaun to be Wild. That's available to buy online, and there are second-hand copies of his old DVD out there as well, but I'm not bothered about that. I was quite happy to buy it online. And yeah, it's just from a much earlier part in his career where he hasn't got that scandal hanging over his head, so he can do a more traditional kind of observational routine. So he starts with a routine about feeling self-conscious in public, including travelling on public transport, walking around, using public toilets and going to the gym. Then there's a bit about football, where there's a great slow motion sequence he does about trying to kick a ball and imagines what it would be like if a supermarket worker was treated like a football player. And then he talks a lot about being lazy and unhealthy and drinking too much, stuff like that, and various other bits and pieces too. So that's a fun show as well. So I'm glad I checked out Sean Walsh's stuff. And then in terms of other comedy, the main thing to mention this month is Bottom Exposed, which was a 2-hour documentary on Gold all about the classic sitcom Bottom from the 90s, which was my introduction to Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson when I was growing up and their style of comedy. And I fell in love with them from the outset because it was very rude and violent and everything, but very funny. And actually, as you grow up, you kind of appreciate how well written it is as well. There's some very clever jokes in there, especially like the gift sequence for the baby in the Christmas special. The payoff to that is fantastic. And there's other jokes as well that are very clever. And some episodes that in themselves, just as a concept, are clever, like the one where they're stuck on top of a Ferris wheel for the entire episode told in real time. That's actually quite a difficult thing to write and pull off and continuously make funny throughout, but they really do it well. And the live shows, obviously, that I got on VHS and then on DVD, they're fantastic. You know, they're often remembered like for the mistakes they made. Often they were scripted, those mistakes. You know, there are people who have been to other shows on the same tours who said, yes, those mistakes were repeated. It may well be that they made the mistakes for real earlier in the tour and then wrote them in, or they may just have wrote them in knowing that people would enjoy them anyway. And there are some real mistakes in there too. It's just hard to tell which are which sometimes. Doesn't matter, they're all hilarious in any case. I love those live shows. And the movie is all right as well. It's not as good as their TV shows, their live shows, but it's still all right. But yeah, this documentary was very good. Adrian Edmondson was there, which was the key thing, being Rick Mayall's comedy partner. So he gave us lots of insights into the creation of the show and how it was put together, how it was filmed and everything. And then he got emotional when he was talking about like the impact of Rick's quad bike accident, because it changed his personality quite a bit. And then obviously his death in particular, which was 10 years ago this year, which seems unbelievable, Rick's passing. So it's wonderful to hear him talking about the show and the love he has for it. And we heard from producer Ed Bye and various other people who worked on the show and some of the guest stars as well. And there are also some celebrity fans of the show, but not too many of them. You know, some of these documentaries that they do about old shows have loads of celebrities talking about them and how much they like them and everything without actually really adding anything. It just pads out the show to make it long. But here they were used sparingly, to be fair, and they did actually give some nice contributions, including Chris McCausland and Maisie Adam, among others. Alexi Sale was there as well. He was with them in the young ones. So yeah, it was interesting to hear from them. And there was lots of great footage as well that I'd never seen before. You know, I used to have the Bottom Fluff outtakes and behind the scenes footage, and a lot of that, most of it, has been incorporated on the DVDs as extra features as well. But there was quite a bit of extra footage that I hadn't seen before, particularly behind the scenes footage of them filming the title sequence and the credit sequence and other bits from the studio as well. So I'm kind of hoping that one day, you know, if they've been digging through the archives like that, they might kind of release a set like they did with the young ones and Blackadder with like studio recordings and various other bits and pieces. I don't know if they're doing that. It would be really nice if they did on the 10-year anniversary of Rick's death, but we'll see. But I would love a Blu-ray release where they do like all those extra features like they've been doing on some of the other sets recently. And then Gold also showed a couple of extended episodes as well. One was the longer version of Holy, the festive special, which was originally broadcast in October actually, but go figure. But yeah, that version was already available on DVD anyway. And a longer version of Digger, which is the dating agency episode. I had seen the additional material that they've reinserted into that because it was on the original Bottom Fluff video before. So it's not new to me in that sense, but it was nice to see a complete episode of that for the first time. So yeah, again, it'd be nice if they do a Blu-ray set in the future, which I'm really hoping for. then it'd be nice if they included those extended episodes, extended versions of the others as well, if material exists. And then apart from that, I've also been enjoying listening to the second series of Ron 101 on Radio 4, which is where Paul Merton invites a different guest each week to nominate their pet hate to be banished for all eternity. And this is the successor to the old Radio 5 series from the 90s and the long-running TV show, obviously. And he's had some very good guests on this series again. The first was blind comedian Chris McCausland, and I agreed with all his choices, to be honest. I also enjoyed Professor Hannah Fry, who was also a great guest presenter on Have I Got News For You this month. And Daliso Chaponda's been on there, and Naga Manchetti I've heard. And there's also people like Victoria Coral Mitchell and Giles Brandreth coming up, who I haven't heard at the time of filming this video yet. So yeah, a nice selection of guests once again. And then finally, just a quick mention for Taskmaster as well, because I'm enjoying the 17th series of that as it continues. It's not the greatest lineup of guests in terms of people that I like outside the show. You know, I know Steve Pemberton from the League of Gentlemen, but that's about it really. I'm not really a fan of any of them beyond that really. But Steve is very good. He's very smart as well as funny, so he's my favourite from the series. And Nick Mohammed is also worth a mention, because not only is he good in this series, but also he dresses as a vampire to do his tasks, and they've gone the extra mile in the editing and removed his reflections from some of the scenes, which is really a nice touch. So I didn't know about that before, but it was pointed out on social media, and once you know about it, you look for it. Obviously they haven't done it absolutely everywhere, but particularly in scenes like where there's water involved, for instance, you can see Alex Horne reflected but not him, and little things like that. So they're worth looking out for, little touches like that. And then other contestants, Joanne McNally, John Robbins and Sophie Willan, have also been good as well. And that is it. That is all I have to mention for this month. So I hope you enjoyed that and found bits and pieces of interest as usual. There's not anything special coming up for May that I've got planned at the moment. There's one or two things I might book or do that I've got in mind. Obviously Doctor Who's coming back, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, otherwise there's nothing really specific that I need to kind of mention at the moment. But we'll see what happens. There's always stuff that comes up. So there's bound to be a nice variety in the next favourites video. So yeah, I hope you have a good month as well, whatever you're getting up to. And that's all I have to say, really, so I'll leave it there. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe as per usual. Have fun, and I will see you for another video very soon. Bye for now.